Cool. All right. So today, obviously, we're talking about 7 tips to build a multi-7-figure agency. It's kind of even weird to say that. But over this last year, we've broken through $2 million and have become a multi-7-figure agency. Obviously, not one person makes this happen. It's the whole team. Our whole team, I think I've said it in the past, but every time it just continues to get stronger. We have the strongest team we've ever had at 51 Blocks, to the point where I was able to almost over the last 3 months, for about 3 to 4 weeks, be completely out of 51 Blocks to address some other things we had to address. And the agency worked perfectly, actually, with both of us out of it for a while. So setting it up to run effectively and also continue to grow. We continue to have, I think, only 1 or 2 months in our existence since 2009 have we seen negative months, meaning we didn't sell more than we lost. And those 2 months were around March of 2019 during COVID, where I think a lot of businesses probably saw that. But other than that, those are the only 2 months we've ever seen a decline in our revenue over time. But it's exciting, and I think we're most excited to share kind of, I guess, what we've learned, right? And that's where we really always kind of sit. Even when we sell, we don't really sell. We try not to. We try to educate, and that's kind of what we're going to try to do here as well. Anything else you want to chime in with that?
I think you set the stage perfectly for this. This is really our advice to, I think what's cool about this presentation is that people at any size will be able to take something away from it. And I think for us, these were a lot of lessons that, had we known them sooner, would have been better, right? Like, these are things that we're trying to say really have made a huge impact on our success. So yeah, I mean, take it as you will, but I think these are all the best things we could come up with as to why we're here now, where we are.
And I think, we'll get into some of it, but, this is just high level thoughts of, hey, these 7 things is really what we think separated us or helped us get through everything and continue to be an agency and all of that. So Let's get into it here. Who we are. I'm Michael Borgelt, founder and CEO. I'm located in Denver, Colorado, and grew up in Minnesota, have a computer science degree. I coach other agencies, passionate about site speed. That's kind of what Bionic WP does, is it does a site speed optimization. And we've authored a number of books. I always kind of joke with Brittany because she wrote 99.9% of it, right? And I think my mom's more excited that I wrote a book than anything in my agency. So she's always so she still has the book, the first version, on her coffee table, and it's like her pride. So that's definitely something that she's interested in. And Brittany, I'll let you do your intro.
Yeah, I'm the COO or the integrator at 51 Blocks. I also help out at Bionic now. I primarily take care of all the things. Like, there's many hats that are in my job description. I also have a background in marketing. I have an MBA. I like people. I like to manage people. So that's kind of where I shine at our agency. So the best way I feel like Michael and I work together is he's the visionary. I'm the implementer, the integrator. If you follow EOS, that's exactly our model. So as we go through this presentation, you'll kind of see how we work with each other. Him and I both complement each other's skills. So it's definitely been a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously probably wouldn't even be alive anymore, to be honest, if it wasn't for Brittany, the ability to take my vision and execute it, or our vision together, right? We come up with a lot of ideas together, and I would say, I help a little bit with the execution, not nearly as much, but we're able to work together, and it's been a really good synergy. And I guess that's a free tip. Find somebody that's really good at your weaknesses. I'm not strong at managing people. Brittany is, and that's where she really fits in and does a good job. So what the true 7 tips are today, we're going to talk about automations, financials, the mental roller coaster, reputation, team structure, leadership, and buy versus build. And our goal at the end of all of this is to overwhelm you with value, right? That's all this is just pure value, nothing else other than that, and kind of what we've done and what we've gone through. So first, First thing we'll talk about is automation, right? This is a big thing now. Everyone has, the chat bots and everything that can do a bunch of different things for you. And, I just got to find the one that will regrow my hair. Then that will have that. But the automation when possible. And I think this is, I'll just say this, and then Brittany, I'll let you dive into it. I hate automated chat bots. Right? That's just something I dislike. I want to talk with a real person. Just like when I get on the phone and I'm on the hold with Delta or United and they give me those prompts. Don't want that, right? I want 0000, right? To get to customer service. I want to talk to somebody. So there's definitely the right places to do it and the wrong places and the pros and cons. And I kind of talked a little bit to those, but Brittany, go ahead and kind of dive in on what you see here or what you think.
I'm with you on those robots because I feel like the phone ones, I can never say it the right way, and I never make those work for me. So we were very careful as to what we wanted to automate in our own agency. The value of automation, I think we saw Michael's always seen it. He's always had something going on that's a little bit more automated. When I came here and we were in the sales space together, that's where I really saw the power of automation, being able to actually take the steps someone would, like a human would, and be able to create funnels and things like that to essentially relieve those things off my plate. I think for me, it just kind of opened my eyes into like, well, what else can we do? And then I feel like we just started kind of going department by department and trying to find ways to figure out the automation side a little bit better, and where we could leverage it. So what we ended up automating in our agency that really helped was, like I mentioned, the sales side. For leads, at one point in time, I was in the sales seat, and my time is super valuable. So really the only people who would get to my calendar were those who were ready to go, not new agencies who were just kind of figuring things out. And so what we ended up building for them was partly our partner center, which I think in some ways is a little more automated to take them through the journey of learning about us, but then also just our sales funnel. They essentially would go through a different kind of way to be nurtured, and it was all through automations. We were able to automate through Monday, and I think we have some other tools, and Michael can probably go into the details of that, but that was super cool. I think we've seen with the data that really helped us close bigger deals, more deals, because our time was spent nurturing people who were really ready to close. And when you're a white label agency, and this might not apply to everybody because most have niches, our sales cycle is a bit longer. It's usually about, I'd say, a month, maybe a little faster if they're in need, but a lot of the times we get people in there, they're already checking out other vendors too, because you have to be really careful with who you white label with. So this, I think, sped up our ability to focus on those who are really just ready to go. So sales and nurturing, I think it's a great place to automate. Most people do this now through like high level or something of that nature. We were able to do it through Monday in a way that we actually manage our leads, which is cool. Michael, do you have anything to add to the sales side?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. We use Monday.com. It does a bunch of automations inside of there, and it sends off things that normally people would have to do or write up type of emails. And
yeah,
that's how we were able to leverage that. Then the next one I'm excited about in the content process, I will definitely want to talk about.
Yes. Yeah, the checkout process. This is cool. We used to have proposals. And so again, it was like, where do we identify? One of the questions on here is like, when is it appropriate to automate? I think you need to connect with your leads and build some trust with them and talk to them. And I'm not saying get away entirely from having sales calls, because I think you absolutely need those. But something that was a problem in our own process was that there was this, like, several hands that essentially needed to pass through. So we had the sales call, and then it was like, okay, I'm ready to go. Then we had to create a proposal, and then we'd have to follow up on the proposal, and then we'd finally collect payment and get going. And so Michael, being a genius, was like, let's just do a checkout on the website. And it has sped up our ability to sign on partners. They can do it on their own time. That was a game changer, I think, for us. The other side of it, too, is that billing is essentially automated and in their hands, where they have a dashboard and they can manage their cancels and their, subscriptions in any way that they want. So that was huge. I highly advise that for anybody, honestly. It was kind of amazing for us.
Yeah, I think I'll just jump in a few things. I think the checkout process, I think so many times agencies want to hide their pricing. And that, for us, was a long time of what we were trying to do. Not provide the pricing up front, right? Get people to communicate. Then the question 90% of the time is, what's your pricing? Well, let me just give that to you to start with. So I eliminate those people that aren't interested in the price. If they don't, like the idea is, hey, you let them in, you tell them your value, they understand your price, right? So it was the trade-off between that. And I think the real trade-off became to what Brittany was talking about, creating proposals and following up on proposals and then getting credit cards, the signature, filled out, and then implementing that, and then having to manage cancels, right? We talk about all things here. It's not like every client we get stays forever, right? So cancellations do happen in this agency, and we definitely go through that process, right? So allowing that even to be automated, right? I'm never going to keep somebody here that doesn't want to be here. So that kind of fit in line with what our values were. So we built out, I think, a pretty amazing checkout process with a huge, what we call a pizza tracker behind, which is the next kind of part. So go ahead.
Yeah, onboarding is fun. So our onboarding has become even more automated, which this is an exciting, I think, thing for us to figure out. Again, another seat that was in our agency. How do you become more profitable? You essentially figure out how to reduce your overhead. And a seat that was in our agency was an onboarding role. And that was a person who just took care of, things that came in and set up all the calls and did all that stuff. But I was noticing that we weren't being leveraged as much as a white label, like client facing to onboard. In fact, it was much lower than it used to be when Lisa and I were in this space. And so what I ended up doing was leveraging a tool called Video Ask, which a lot of people know about. And I was able to replicate the onboarding call within that with my face and having, the same questions, but actually weaving in expectations, which is super cool. So when a sale comes in, now there is another tool in our white label partners toolkit, so to speak, where they can have us reach out through a branded inbox, or they can use this themselves and have the onboarding process be a little bit more automated. That information now can go to the team as well. We're not playing telephone. We're not dealing with documents. That was another thing that was like so inconsistent from one client to the next. And so this was a good area that we were able to automate. Part of it is that it keeps all of your clients, and for us partners, in line with the same steps. Because when your steps are off, and this is a big part of looking at the account management side, whenever you have issues of people not having all the information in front of them, it tends to snowball. Like there was one thing missed, which can snowball into a bigger thing later on. And so what I was seeing was that partners were giving us incomplete information, inconsistent information. And the way that I was able to kind of get that back in line was creating an automated process where they just need to follow the steps and fill out all the info, and then it looks the same to the team. And when you have a lot of different agencies you deal with, everybody does it differently. Everybody has a different amount of information, but at least what it looks like to our team feels a lot more consistent than it used to. So that was the way that we automated the onboarding process. Cool. Client updates. Michael, you want to talk about the client update side? Because this was another big area. We got some of our overhead reduced, I think, using this.
This is the
Monday notifications and our pizza tracker.
Pizza tracker, yeah. It's like my thing to talk about is the pizza tracker, right? You guys think this little this tool from in the image below is from Integromat. And the pizza tracker, oh boy, that one has lots of little gadgets and arrows and different things that's happening in that one. Yeah. I love it, right? It helps update our clients through the process. Every time that some interaction happened on Monday, it sends off an email communication. We try to be very, all these things are learning lessons, right? Like Brittany said, these are all the things we've learned over 10 years or 11 years or 12 years, 12 years now of doing this is all these things, right? How do we communicate better? How do we, we got to cover ourselves. We got to make sure you're covered, right? Make sure the expectations are in line, because that's the thing we talk about all the time. And, client updates was a pizza tracker. Every step would send a different email associating with that step and describe where we're at in the process. We got so much positive feedback from that. People understanding exactly where we were at all times. And like with SEO or any type of digital marketing work, half of it is just telling them you're doing it, right? And instead of manually writing that every time or expecting an account manager to do that, they just do little button, and it sends it, right? And I think that was super effective, is what I would say in the client communication. And then obviously we have internal notifications inside of Slack, things like that, right? That we use that show, hey, this guy signed up, this guy canceled. We can have conversations around that immediately as it happens. So there's some of that as well. My favorite, personally, content process, right? This one I got super stoked, and when I figured it out, we actually have a team of writers, 10 to 20 writers that we have, and we have a board that is a bidding system, right? And longer the content sits there, the higher the price gets, right? So if let's say that some content that some people don't necessarily want, like we have a funeral home as a client, maybe people don't want to write about that, right? But eventually everybody's got their price, right? So the system automatically increases the pricing, and it's an automated system that runs off of time and all of that. And it solved our content problem. We used to outsource a lot of content to different solutions, different providers, and it never worked as well as what we have currently. And it's a pretty cool process. Do you want to get on that at all?
I think part of the reason why it works really well is it's a hybrid model between just having in-house writers, because all of our writers are trained based on what our expectations are, our structure. I mean, they're all trained to work at 51 Blocks and how we want everything done. But to Michael's point, it was like writers are always, they're freelancers for the most part, right? They're probably your writers, if you have them in-house, probably do write for other people. Writers, it's their passion, it's what they do, and they want to do it a lot. And what we found was that if you put a bunch out there, it was like a game at first. We were like, let's see who picks it up. And for how much. And then as soon as people started coming in, and mind you, we have a lot of writers. I'm recruiting. I feel like every couple of months I go back in and I hire more writers, and we invite them into what we call our writers pool. Again, all people trained here, but they have the ability to claim content assignments as they have the bandwidth for them. And so, this was fun. It's also really cool how we have it managed. Like, Michael built this to notify clients when writing was going to take place. So it's almost like a final reminder to a client, hey, you already approved this topic. Just giving you a final notice if they wanted to say no, right? Or if any client wanted to raise their hand. So this was super cool. And then 3 days later, it will automatically, once it's claimed, it'll go into what we call it's like basically in progress. So we know it's with the writer. The writers then have 7 days to complete it. So we even gave them a timeline. All of this is automatic on our content space, where this all changes on its own for us. There's no manual management of it. And then once it's done, it goes to our team. Our team gets notified. I think there's Slack notifications when it's done. And then they review it. They get it through to the client. It actually even sends it from that one board to our clients, because we created a brand called A-Dash, which is like our white label brand. We use it for different things around here, and so we were able to basically create a giant content machine, which is super cool.
And this is exactly one of those areas where I think even this one I had my hands in longer in the concept idea. I built it out. I thought it was 95% done. Figured out it was about 60% done, and then Brittany came in and told me all the areas that it was missing. But this just kind of shows things that can be automated, right? That you don't necessarily need to have time and management and people managing those things. And that's where, when you have people managing things, that's when things get missed a lot of times, right? So you got to make sure that, one, if you're going to automate something, it's got to be dialed in completely, right? You got to be able to knock it out 100%. Right. And the last area was our reporting process, and this one definitely made me lose hair, because it was a process that I, within 6 months, 9 months, rebuilt twice for a large number of clients, which obviously takes a lot of time when anything you do in a large quantity. But it's, our reports now, you can view them at any time throughout the month and get information and things like that. And that's what clients want. They want that information if they look at the reports, right? And that's the whole thing, is maybe clients don't even look at them, right? If we're speaking to the true things. So like Brittany kind of said, why we automate, we're increasing profitability, try to reduce human error. I think that's the biggest reason to automate personally. And then increase the client experience. Josh did have a question. He said, would an e-com checkout process be applicable for custom pricing models or high retainers? I think high retainers, absolutely, yes. I think custom pricing models, you can do it because we did it actually with a huge matrix of. We have our gold, our Google My Business. Google My Business pricing is small, medium, large in regards to the cities, and then we have a bunch of industries as well, right? So we built this matrix and we jammed those two things together. So we have 15 different agencies, 15 different niches, and 3 cities. Now you got whatever that math is, 50 different price points, right? And that's what you'd have to build in some sort of your custom, if you want a custom pricing model, right? And then inside those custom pricing models, you'd have to describe what you're getting differently in each one, right? And that's what we had to do, is kind of describe, hey, what does low mean? What does medium mean? What does high mean? And then the industries, why it costs more in these industries, why not? And if you have that stuff laid out, it becomes a self-checkout process. So yes, I think you can do it. The other thing you could do is have your pricing, have the high retainers, and then have a form that says, hey, you want custom pricing, reach out, right? And then they can give you more information on that. Yeah. But tip 1 took a lot longer than I thought. 20 minutes in. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind as we go. Oh, that's not even tip 1. That's just number 1. Here's the tip, right? Is leverage the right automation to save you time and money. And I think that's true. You can have automation that can blow up. Definitely done that before. We leverage all 3 of these: Integromat, Zapier, and Monday.com, right? So those 3 are, I think, Integromat, it's more powerful than Zapier in my opinion, but it's a little more technical. There's things I even get lost in, how to pass data around in there and separate it out. And sometimes systems don't necessarily play together. So sometimes I'll even send gravity forms to Zapier to Integromat so I can get the data out the way that I need to. But that's kind of tip number 1 in regards to automation. All right, you ready for number 2?
Ready.
Cool. Know your numbers, right? I'm a computer science guy and I love numbers, and that's what we really talk about a lot over here, I guess. Knowing your numbers is important, and I didn't do it early enough. This is tip number 2. A little bit more important than 1 in my opinion. But if I knew this earlier, this would have changed the trajectory of my business personally. So I think you guys need to know your numbers. There's plenty of tools out there. That's part of the tip. Number 2 that I won't talk, I guess I have to talk about it because that's where these graphs come from. But we use Barometrics. It's a tool that tells you anything you want to know about your data, right? It's super clean. It looks at your transactions and how those things are coming together, your plans, or however you build your checkout process, or how the payments come in, and you can see your lifetime value of customers. You can see your user churn. You can see things like that, right? And those are the things that are super important. So go ahead, Brittany, jump in.
Okay. Well, numbers in general, I think across the board, it falls outside of sales numbers too. I think a lot of times people get stuck on just the sales numbers, which obviously are very important. That's why Barometrics for us is key. These are actually screenshots from our own for this month, just to show you guys what this kind of looks like, how we track it. But it goes beyond that with your team, understanding their workload, understanding how you're allocating tasks. One of the biggest questions I always see is, how can I basically see by task within a campaign how much time my team should be spending on it? And Michael and I spent what feels like forever. It was actually like 3 long days, creating what we call our roadmaps. And we went through and we actually, just based on our experience, based on running through it, based on understanding our process, allocated what we call kind of our goal times, or the times where we feel like our team needs to kind of hit measures for spending time on these particular tasks. Even numbers like that can greatly impact your profitability. And there are times when I go in and I look at someone's workload and I go, how do you have this much and you're spending this much time? And then we try and identify why that is. So knowing your numbers, I think at the sales side of things, obviously super important for your growth, but knowing them in terms of your team's bandwidth, that's really key, I think, in making sure that you have your team set up for success, which means you're set up to scale. So that's kind of how we have our numbers mapped out in all different ways. For our team's workload, we do it in one spot. Every department has what we call an overview board, where every single client with hours by person is all on there so that we can measure it. We also use Time Doctor. That allows us to see by task how much time people spend on these areas, which I think you need somebody in your agency who is paying attention to this, or every 6 months you're evaluating it and seeing where you can tighten things up. But yeah, that's what I have as far as like the team workload balance. Obviously, company projections are huge. You want to make sure you have those in place. Michael is amazing at that, and he always has that kind of set up for us. But you want to give any advice on setting up projections?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you hear this all the time. You don't know where you're going unless you set a goal, right? Like you're steering a ship, which way you're steering the ship, you don't know. I think that's something that the numbers come from, right? Knowing where you're going, if you're able, like, I'll just do a quick story. I refereed in the NBA in 2009, right? The reason I got there is I knew a very clear path of how I was going to get there. I refereed Division I for a number of years. I knew that path. I set goals on those paths with dates and everything like that. And Brittany, and she probably hates me, but I assign dates and numbers to everything, right? Every month. Hey, how did we do? What did we think? And it's a hit or miss. That's all I write in my little board. Did we hit it or did we miss it? You shoot for the stars and you hopefully hit the moon, right? That's the whole idea. Is our projections are way out there and then we don't always hit them. But I guarantee, I actually know that I've become more dedicated with this in the last 2 or 3 years, and that's why we've seen the significant growth that we've had. I think has a big part of that. I also think it has to do with a major area that Brittany's a part of, which is like employee happiness and company culture. I think that, and knowing that information, she's really driven that. I think there's people that, it was just my birthday. Go ahead and wish me, everybody, happy birthday. That's and I got this video from the team that Brittany had put together about just how excited everyone is to work here and how much they love to work here. And it really touched my heart because it's the first time I think in 12 years that's happened. It's 100% of what she's done in regards to, making sure that people understand what their roles and responsibilities and how they can feel successful. I think that's the best way to kind of summarize that. And that's kind of why we keep track of all these numbers and all that. And it's a lot to, that's a lot to kind of manage, so it's, it can be a lot, but you got to set time, aside. I remember the first time we did it, I flew up to Portland and I think Brittany thought I was crazy because I had like what are those, the easel kind of thing that you tear the pages off and we stick it
on the wall.
We probably had 20 of them, right?
Yeah.
And we finally started crossing stuff off and got it down to like 8 key metrics we were going to measure for the business. Yeah. It was a fun experience. Mind becomes mush after that. I think we've seen that a number of times with you and I working together, but it's knowing your numbers and getting there is very important. Obviously the P&L is something you want to look at, but I think to Brittany's point, like the reason churn is on here and not our overall revenue is because churn I think is the most important number, right? You can have it's like half as number of sales if you're going to reduce your churn by 20% or something like that is the number. And that's where you really want to like focus your time and effort if possible, right? And that's why our lifetime value of customers, our price point is not very high, right? That lifetime value of customers is actually still growing because we just implemented Barometrics 2 years ago. So we're continuing to see that number kind of grow up and continue to move up over time because customers stay with us for a long time, right? Yeah. So knowing your numbers, that's that. So let's jump into, set, map, measure your goals weekly, quarterly, and beyond, right? So I have this remarkable tablet, right? That's what I use. And every month, let's see if I can just show you real quick. Every quarter, I think it is roughly, every quarter, Brittany and I, we go through the process and we set our monthly goals, right? And we usually do this for the year as well, but sometimes they need to be adjusted based on how far they're off or whatever it might be. And we kind of map those things out. And all we do is say hit or miss at the end of the month. When we hit that goal or we miss it, and that's it. We have a conversation about it. Why did we miss it? What do we got to do? Do we need to adjust anything? Right? Is that key metrics? And somebody just commented, less churn explodes LTV 100%, right? Like that's exactly what happens there. So I was going to show you, but this now wants to show me Google Drive. So I'm going to skip that. Okay. Prepare. I think this one for me, and I think another entrepreneur, a friend of Brittany's and I's, was the biggest eye-opening thing, is prepare for the roller coaster. The ups and downs that you will go through owning your business is incredible, right? It'll bring you to your knees, right? And it literally has. I've literally sat on this desk and literally put my forehead right here on the desk, being like, oh my gosh, what is going on? How can I fix this? What am I going to do? Right? How are Brittany and I going to work through these problems? Right? Or even before she was here, right? I would say this is one area I was not very good at in my early years. I was very much up and down, and the whole company would feel it, right? And having somebody that you trust, that you can work with, like for me, it's Brittany, it's just to talk about things. Sometimes we'll just be like, hey, I just need to talk. And you just got to be able to get things off your chest and talk about the stresses. And that other person's got to be okay with not taking those stresses and trying to solve them all as well, which is hard for both of us because we both care about each other so much. We want to fix those things for each other, and it's hard, right? But this for me this is the number one thing I think should be talked about more than anything else in business that isn't talked about enough, right? We talked about mental health now as a society a lot. Business owners, what they have to go through, like I said, the mutual friend of ours is one of the most mentally strong persons I've ever met. And I've never, like when he started his business, it was every 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 8 weeks, it brought him to his knees, right? And it's hard. It's what it is. Why don't you talk a little bit to it from somebody that is, part this and somebody that came into it as well, right?
Yeah, I think to your point, mental health is vital in our own success. Just in life. When I came here, it was a teeter-totter. It was like our great days were really great. Our bad days felt really bad. And it felt that way to everybody. And part of that is Michael wears his heart on his sleeve, right? We could all see that he just cared so deeply for this company and these clients. And I think when you're growing or building a team, you have to look at who you have in leadership positions that will essentially help them at the end of the day push forward. And so part of that was me stepping in as like the people manager and shielding them from Michael's frustrations, because I was there then to listen and receive. And if I could help, I could help. If I couldn't, I would just listen and let him vent. But then for the team, it had to be more motivating than just saying, X, Y, and Z because I'm upset. So that was a big change, I think, in our own agency. And I highly recommend that you have people in your leadership positions who know how to emotionally detach. I do have an undergrad in psychology. I've probably used that knowledge twice in my life, but I think what it helped me understand was just human behavior in general. Our people work their best when they're less stressed. And so if we're stressing them out because we feel it at the top, trying to grow everything, and those cancels hit us, and we're like, all that hard work that we're trying to put forward, and you have your team feel like that, they are going to do poorly in their position. And that's my belief. I think great people who enjoy their job and don't feel stressed out are going to have such a better output. And so something that changed for us was creating that barrier. And then, I think when you're in this, just remembering that the people who you surround yourself with, mentorship groups are really important. Those things also, I feel like, impact you. Like being a part of a group that makes you feel good is really important. If you're in a space where you feel like it's competitive and you're not really getting value out of it, and everybody's just like trying to one up the next, it might not be a good fit for you. And that takes a toll on your mental health. I think like there's been times when Michael and I will both just like stay off Facebook because whatever's going on in the world is just too much. And that's where it kind of puts you over the edge, I feel like. So keeping yourself focused and siloed, taking time for yourself is really important. Remembering why you're doing this in the first place, I think it's a really important thing to always keep in mind. Like when those stressful days hit for him and I, we have to both like take a moment and remember why we love this so much, right? We love working together. We love growing this agency. We love our clients. We love our partners, and that these things are going to happen. Cancels are going to happen. Bad clients are going to happen. Disagreements are going to happen. Those are all normal and natural. So I'd say try and have a little grace for yourself and just know that you're going to feel a lot going into this, especially I think when we were at 1 to 2 million, like this whole gap where we wanted to reach for 2, that was when I felt like the stakes get even higher and the stress gets even higher. And so, yeah, that's my 2 cents on the whole thing.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think there's some good tips in here. Like, up here are my mantras every day. I write them, right? Every day I write them to remind myself why I'm doing this. What are your whys, right? We kind of talk about that, discovering your why, right? I write my whys every day so I can understand. So, and then I think, for me, reducing the stress over cancels, that's what's significantly changed, right? I can't control everything. Control what you can control, right? My father-in-law talks about, this is about how much you get to control, right? Your arm length, that's it. And other than that, you got to let everything else go and just try to learn from things. I think that's what we really try to do here. So tip number 3, prepare for the roller coaster, right? Because it's a roller coaster ride, lots of ups, hopefully more ups than downs. So my sister Kate talks about, having your tribe and the people that fill you up and the people that are part of your network that are really strong. And, for me, it's a handful of 4 or 5 people, Brittany being one of those people that help support you through this process, right? It's hey, I need to talk about this on Sunday because I'm stressing out, and she calms me down, or vice versa, right? So there's those things that happen that I think you got to have that network of people who you're going to lean on through this process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, reputation matters. Brittany, why don't you jump into this?
So I was building this story. Michael's going to be featured in something about his about our agencies, and they said, well, how did you get your clients? And I had no story to tell because Michael's built these agencies off reputation. Like it's just doing a good job and word of mouth and all of those things. And so the obviously we know one bad client, it's like a snowball effect, right? With other people who could be prospects. We ourselves, we're a part of a group where one person who didn't like the way we did something, it's like, now we've got 20 other people who think the same way. For us, we've learned to accept that and just be okay and be fine, knowing that we do a good job for the people we have here at the end of the day. But it's important that you keep a pulse on your reputation. And I think for, what we looked at or what you should consider is, how does your business impact your clients? Is it having a good effect? Is it not a good feeling? Have you talked to them? Building that reputation. I think Michael and I are fairly disconnected to like where we used to be with partners, where like him and I would get on review calls for reports, things like that. And so the team you have is very, very, very key. The people who represent 51 Blocks, the people who represent our white label partners, we're very careful to put in certain seats, knowing that they'll do a great job and knowing that they're the people we would trust with anything. And I think that's a big part of how we've built the reputation that we have outside of what Michael did in the first, 9 years before I came along. So that's really important as well. Michael, do you have anything to add?
No, I think obviously capturing reviews and getting credibility is important. It's tough. You got to have good relationships with people. I struggle asking people to do that for us because I'm somebody that doesn't like to hear good or bad things said about us. It doesn't matter. But you got to do it because it's what people look at. It's what we all look at online when we try to deal with people or have referrals in general. So I think, the tip for the most part is, build a business and team that reflects your values and ethics, right? I think nothing rings more true for me personally over what I've had to overcome here recently, is if you're doing the right thing, That's all you can try to do, right? At the end of the day, you do your thing. If it doesn't, and you laid out your expectations, if that doesn't match what somebody else's expectations were, then there's nothing you can do about that. Like, to Brittany's point, we had somebody go and talk about us. Hey, go, they didn't do their Google My Business work for us. Well, you didn't have a website, you didn't have an address or a business name, kind of. So
We're not
for us to do our job, but it got me out of shape because somebody's telling me I'm not doing a good job, right? So I think understanding you got to have your ethics in line with how you want your business to run. And I feel like it always all comes back to you. I actually am part owner of another agency at some level, and he doesn't act with the same ethics, right? And that agency has had the growth it's had because of it, right? Which is not any growth. We just do fulfillment for that agency for the most part. But that is what it is, because I think if you do things the right way, it turns out to be the right way for you.
Yeah, I will say on that, just on that last tip, through EOS, we became at peace with our partners, because you want partners who are clients, and if you run a niche, who do have the same ethics and values as you to some degree. Again, for us, it's a little different. We've got two agency owners basically in the same space, but I think it helped us be at peace with the partners that didn't work out. And we were like, okay, they don't carry the same values as we do, and that's okay. So it was a really good lesson that we learned from our time with EOS.
Cool. All right. Number 5, if you ever hear us talk or do any type of presentation, we always talk about right people, right seats, right? This is from Jim Collins, Good to Great. Funny thing about that book, most of the companies in that book no longer exist. But I think the concept is very, very true. And it really opened my eyes to how to run a business, right? So, for example, there was somebody that applied to our company multiple times and didn't get hired or didn't get a resume the first time. And then the second time she applied, she got an interview. And then she very quickly moved from an account manager to an SEO manager to then the position she is. I think within 4 or 5, 6 weeks, she moved up that quickly. And that, of course, is Brittany, because it's right people, right seats, right? I saw immediately how good she was at interacting and dealing with people compared to my weakness, which is not something that I'm strong in. And she was able to kind of be in that position of operations very quickly. And I think once you're able to get people in the right seats, the right people in the right seats, you can drive the bus, right? And that's kind of how I envision it. That's kind of Jim Collins talks about, is you're moving the bus forward. There's not all this, it's not a crazy bus ride. Everyone's not happy with their seats or whatever it might be. Everyone understands what they're doing, and you're moving forward. And that's really what it kind of works out. And, you want to talk a little bit about how we got there, I guess?
Yeah. Testing, it's actually on here. Testing and firing fast is really important. Michael threw a bunch of fires at me when I was first here. I think the second day I was here, somebody quit and I had to take over their reports. So there was a lot of that when I first started. And I think that helps him see that I was capable and dedicated and all of those things. But with your team, as you're building it up, and it's funny that we use a screenshot actually, because this was from probably a couple years ago, now or maybe last year. And it's so tiny compared to what we have now with both agencies. But the big thing for us was finding tests that we could measure skill sets you can't train on. So that is one of the biggest tips I would ever give somebody who's in a recruiting position. Find something that you can give them, that you can see reliability, that you can see them problem solving on their own. There's one thing with following directions. We had somebody here, we were testing, and we always keep our tests really safe, meaning we don't use actual clients to test on. We use ourselves, or we use sample tasks, so to speak. And the person we had here wasn't following our SOPs. And mind you, our SOPs are to a T, click this button, do this thing. And we do that on purpose to reduce human error. But she wasn't even able to follow those. To me, that's not a skill I can train on, right? It's like a listening skill. I can't train on those things. So in the initial stages of recruiting and building your team, find things that are, I would say, don't just toss open-ended tasks at them. because we've tried that before. We tried going down the like expert strategist route, but every single person was different. And what ended up happening was they had a really hard time falling in line with an agency structure and being a part of this team in the way that we wanted things to run. So that there's that. Also, obviously, fire fast, right? Hire slow, fire fast. I think that's like the normal model. That's really important. Identifying the first red flag and just ask yourself, is this something I can coach through, or is this something I can't fix? And that's why I say to train on those things that are going to be more personality traits, things that you can't necessarily control. The other thing is dialed in SOPs. Michael and I spent a lot of time in this space last fall into December, I think was a big month for us. That's right. He remembers the date, December 9th. And we spent long hours together creating our step-by-step processes for our team. And our goal was to be able to hire people who had phenomenal personality traits that were in line with our values, our beliefs, what we felt like were really important, and train them up. And I think Josh uses this model, Josh Nelson. And because we've tested it both ways, and it worked really well for us. Part of this is the output. We make sure that our team understands what we're looking for through these SOPs. And there's always a layer of creativity that we give them. I think it's really important that you give your team the flexibility in the space to be creative. That's what fuels their passion. So it'll slide into another one I know we're talking about, but I think that's an important thing. And then also having your internal support system. So when I came along, and Michael put this best, he was like, what is it? You were holding paper on the walls?
Yeah.
I came around and I taped it all up for you. He was running this agency by himself, which is insane. Having an internal support structure for your team, it will help relieve you of the stress of trying to manage the people. And again, these are really good people who are great with operations. They're great with attention to detail. I'm like I like data. So we were just in our sales space, right? I was trying to collect data when these are the people who have a feeling and they go and they seek the information and then they report it back to you. Those are the good people that are going to keep your team supported. And I strongly recommend you have them in your agency and you don't try and grow a 7-figure agency all by yourself, trying to manage like account managers and things like that, unless Michael recommends it. But all right. And then mentorship versus management is something on here. I think there is and I think we will talk about this soon here, but there's a difference between the two. There's a difference between mentoring a team and managing a team. I think they both need to happen. I think they happen at appropriate times. But having people in the right seats will help you make sure that everybody's well taken care of in a professional way and in a way that will make them feel good about the jobs that they have. Anything else that you'd like to discuss?
No, I don't think so. I think you hit it right. I talked about, just to hire fast. That's not where my head is right now. And hire slow. I think we hire fast, fire fast. I think we kind of do both.
Yeah.
Because we're going to test them to see if they work instead of taking this long time to hire to then, that person didn't work and you got to start over again, right?
Right.
So we kind of do both, and we're able to identify pretty quickly if somebody's not going to work out. It's usually Brittany or I saying, not sure. And then literally 2 weeks later, both of us are finally to that point where we're like, okay, time to move on from that decision, right? So tip for this is providing, training and measurable KPIs, audit them and then reward often. If that's just, we have a thing where when we do reporting, I like to see wins in the channel, right? So that we can see 1 for our clients and 2 for our account managers doing the work, right? Because we know the work works, right? It ends up getting results for everybody. So
yeah.
Number 6, passionate leadership. I wanted to talk about one thing, and this is something Brittany does a really good job of, is you want to hire on passion. So before we kind of get into this point, and that kind of helps support passion, but that's kind of what ends up being here is one of the things one of our core values that we identified through Traction was passion. We want people that are passionate about working here, right? And what are they passionate about? What do they enjoy doing? Obviously, not everyone's going to be like, oh, I love SEO. That's what I want to do all the time and think about it. but there are some people that are like that, right? We have a SEO specialist, Phil. He loves SEO. He loves figuring this stuff out. This is what he likes. I like it, SEO. I like site speed. I like those weird things, right? I like figuring those things out. They challenge my mind. Not everyone's like that, and I get that, right? But you want to make sure that they're passionate in the space. So go ahead. This is kind of your world, I feel like.
Yeah, this is, I call it leading with empathy, so to speak. Looking at people's passions will help you identify a good role for them, but also it helps you connect with them. When people here at our agency, I mean, pretty much anyone I hire, I'm like, what's your passion? They'll be like SEO, PPC, right? They're going to tell me that because they want me to hear that. And I hope it is, because if they get hired in this role, it's what they'll be doing. But people have other passions outside of their roles. And I actually think that's one of the more important takeaways here, is that passionate leadership is getting to know your team on a different level. It's making sure that they see that you care about them. Part of retention isn't just rewarding through a good salary. It's actually creating a culture that feels more like a family. And that's actually what we have at 51 Blocks, which is my favorite thing ever. It feels like every day you walk in, everybody's there to give you a high five. It actually feels like that on Slack, literally, because we all like say hi with the little emoji. But that's the kind of culture you're creating through passionate leadership, through somebody who's making sure that everybody feels okay, making sure that if they've got something going on, you have someone who's actually checking in on them. Even when people are sick around here, I'll be the first one to go like, hey, how are you feeling? Hey, how's your mom? Like these are the things that they will connect with you over. And I think there's a part of it that helps them feel a little more secure in their role with you. They're not just an employee, or they're not just somebody who's on your team doing a job and then they leave. They really feel like, I belong here. This is a place where I want to grow my career. And then part of this is understanding where they want to be and where they want to grow into. And so, I do think it's important that even if your agency is fairly flat, and I would say ours is fairly flat, right? There's not a whole lot of leadership positions that open up. But if they want to start mentoring other people, give them the opportunity to do that, because for them, it might be part of their passion. If they want to dabble in some creative things, like Alan, who onboards or is onboarding for us, he has a background actually in like visual arts. And so we gave him the newsletter to do for us and do some of our assets like that. And even though it was outside of the role that I hired him in for, it was a way to give him a little bit more excitement in his day in a space that he really enjoyed. And then it also relieved it off of my shoulders. So it was kind of a win-win there. So I would say, just really get to know your team for the people that they are and see how you can help make their day even better. See how you can relieve their stress and excite them. And, even if it's pulling them into conversations that maybe you would only have with your operations person or something like that, right? Getting their ideas. I think that's a really cool way to establish some type of feeling for them that they're valued as a team member.
Cool. I think that's great.
Cool.
Awesome. So, get to know your team, be on their skill set, kind of get into their things what they're passionate about, and spend time there. So, last tip number 7.
Yes.
And this was just recently revealed to me in the last, 6 months to 8 months. So this is more what we're implementing now and what we're seeing work. And as I kind of look back, I'm like, oh, that's what I was doing, or that's what we were doing with this project, or that's what we were doing here, is buy versus build, right? Buy versus build. The way to kind of think about it is, what is the thing that you're going to be known for, you're really good at, right? For our other agents, for our other company, it's customer support and fast loading sites. Those are the two things, right? Everybody can host websites. Not much of a difference, just price. The way we're different is we brought agency level support to the hosting world. That's kind of how I look at it, right? And nobody is doing that. And even now, they're still not. So does that mean I go out and build my own servers and implement, firewalls and do all those things that I'm talking on like I know what I'm talking about? No, that means exactly not, right? I don't go learn that and then build that. I buy that, right? I go to GCP or Google, get the solution there. I go to AWS. I go to different Linode, right? I go to these places that already have those solutions in place, and then I apply my USP or thing I'm offering clients on top of that. The way when you're able to do that, that allows you to continue to focus on what you're focusing on. And when I heard this 6 months ago, it was from some really smart people, some people from the MIT and Stanford. They were talking about this, and it like opened my eyes to be like, wow, that's what we need to be doing. We don't need to build a billing system, right? That's what we did at 51 Blocks. We didn't build it. We use EDD, easy digital downloads, right? Threw it into our platform. I didn't go and have it custom built because something was already done. We bought that, right? Because we're not a billing company, right? We're an SEO company. We're an agency. That's where your mindset needs to be as you, I think, grow forward is, hey, is this a buy or is this a build, right? And you think about that. And to be honest, I think 80% of the things you're gonna buy to build your platform. That's what I believe. Brittany, go ahead.
I have nothing else to add other than this is the smartest thing we've done. It reduced, I know Michael stressed, I stress, having a system that you know is already like tried and true, so to speak, and it'll have its things, but it's their support team that has to deal with it, right? Like if something happens, and we've built several things over the years. I remember we even built the like where we keep all of our client information at one point, and that was like its own development nightmare, I felt like at one point. And so this really is probably the smartest tip that comes out of this whole thing, in my opinion, is making sure you identify what is worth investing your time and energy into to build yourself and put your name on, and what you can just leverage that's already out there and exists. And obviously, I think the most important thing you can build would be your team, the people who are actually going to be executing on whatever it is you want to be known for, like Michael said. And then just find solutions that, and he does it in a very smart way. He finds them that can integrate with things that we have essentially built, right? So ADASH, you can see a little screenshot here, is our reporting tool. It's a brand that we built, but he found a way to kind of integrate several tools within it, so it reflects this like one giant solution. So I think that's another smart way to do it is to actually figure out how you can use what they have developed and make it look like your own, which again is smart. People use things like High Level and whatnot to do that already, but this was probably the smartest thing we did, was to buy things.
Yeah, no, I mean, a perfect example of this is I built my own keyword ranking system. That didn't work. I spent $80,000 building that platform, and it didn't work at the end of the day, right? Why not just go and use keyword.com or SERP results? Or that seems significantly easier. Nope, I know better. I know how to, no, I don't. That's the thing, right? And I think that's what this thing's taught me is you buy the things you really like. Brittany used the word leverage. You want to leverage that because you don't want to have to be the one fixing that platform when it doesn't work, right? That's the key thing. And then for us, our SEO process is what separates us. Our hosting process with everything involved is what separates us. Our website builds and the cost to do them, that's what separates us, right? It's not the platform it's built on, the servers it's on, or it's part of the servers, right? I had to identify the right solution, but I'm not building physical servers. I'm not installing hardware, right? SEO, SEO is our thing in our process. So I think that's what that and the customer support team around that is what we've built to get to the results.
Yeah.
We've got.
I think our buying in like our SEO space. So strategy is fully developed in-house by us. And our director of strategy, Phil, who's outstanding. That's all done because that's the product that we want to shine, right? That's what we're known for. So that has to have our name on it. We have to stand by that. But what we bought within that would be like the tool we use to post Google My Business posts for our team. That reduces the overhead on manually posting every single time. And now we have a tool that they leverage, right? Other tools, Surfer SEO. they leverage this. Our writing team leverages this. So I think you can find within a service several tools that it just makes your team's time more efficient. And it also makes the results or what your output is more effective, because you have something that's giving you all of the information, and then it's just up to your account strategist to make sure that they're using it in the right way. So yeah, I this is my favorite tip of all, would be just to figure out what you really want to invest your time into and just buy the rest. I mean, there's AppSumo for a reason. This stuff.
Now you can get definitely distracted there and buy the wrong things, and we know that, and I have done that, right? So we got to make sure that you're looking for a specific thing. I actually went there the other day to look for what was I looking? A billing software, and there was something in there, and I was like, oh, this is distracting me. Don't go buy that.
I know, and I probably ruined that for Michael, because it's like, stop buying tools you don't need anymore. But it's good to look at them and see what the latest and greatest is. I do recommend doing that, at least.
Yeah, exactly. So the tip here: define what you really do and learn it and do it really well. That's what we say by buy versus build. 7 tips. These are them. Leverage the right automation, set your goals and map them out. You got to have a strong network to support, or a tribe that needs to guide your heart and protect your heart almost, as well as an owner. Build a business that has your values and ethics. In my opinion, that's key. Having trainable KPIs, measure them. Get to know your team beyond just their skill set, and lastly, buy versus build, which we kind of talked about. Bonus tip: build authority through sharing knowledge, right? Yeah. And that's what we do here in this group. You'll notice we're not selling anything, right? We're just trying to say, hey, here's some information of what we learned, things like that. You can come see me wear a hoodie with some headphones. You can see Brittany, with her different color hair sometimes. And you can continue to be part of our group. We love it. We love people when they come in and comment and chat, things like that. Other resources that we have a ton of different things. We have a bunch of SEO boards you guys want to use, leverage those things, SEO checklists, a bunch of different checklists, different pitch decks you can use and look at. We have our book out there. We have, how to implement EOS, stuff like that. A little over an hour. I think we started like 30 seconds late, so almost exactly an hour like we had targeted. It's a long time to sit through things. We appreciate those people that did. Please let us know if you have any questions or comments or anything. We're definitely here. We're very passionate about this. I have a feeling, it just came to me right now, we may take one of these in our next little office hours if nobody comes in with questions, and talk about one of them again and break it down for the next 7 weeks. So there's our concept. There you go. So it's fun to be a part of this group and to help agencies grow. It's something I'm passionate about as well. Let us know if you have a question. Brittany, do you want to say anything before we wrap up?
No, just thanks for listening to us. I think it's, like you said, we just like sharing what we learn. And it's, take it as it is. It's just what's helped us. But I feel like it's important to talk about some of these things, just as a group.
Cool. All right, guys. Till next time. We'll see you.